to another discussion, and this time we'll be talking about health, stress, and coping. Right? So basically, we have two parts. I'll be dividing this discussion into two parts. So we'll be talking about first, we'll be talking about the stress, and later on, we'll be talking about the different coping mechanisms on how to deal with stress, depression, and anxiety. Okay, and it's so important that we talk about this since as of now a lot of us are suffering from this, no? So let's talk about stress, right? And stress in people, basically stress in everyday terms is basically is a feeling that people have when they are overloaded and uh, struggling to cope with the demands of the environment and maybe the demands of the society. And it's also a common topic that is talked about during discussions with our friends, also with our family members. No? And excuse me, stress in people can be physical, emotional, or psychological. Right? So we have the so-called physical stress, emotional stress, and psychological stress. And each one of us have different types of stresses in life. Right? And when we talk about allostasis, no, it's the process, okay, of how our body responds to stress. Okay, whether that stress is acute or chronic. So it's either short term or a long term kind of stress. Okay? And to tell this now, stress is a universal experience that every one of us experiences it. Okay? Now, no one is exempted, okay, of having stress or being stressed. Okay? Now, um, it's also our response to the events that are threatening to one's well-being. Okay? And as mentioned earlier, it could be an occasional experience or a prolonged experience. Okay? Now, um, it's also, okay, considered as the result of an interaction between a person and its or his or her environment, okay, in which the person believes the situation to be overwhelming and dangerous to his or her well-being. Okay, and of course, basically, it's quite dangerous per se, no? Because some people cannot really cope to stress immediately, okay, or easily. Okay, now let's talk about stressors. Okay, these are the unpleasant situation that produces the stress. Okay? It could be anything. It could be someone. Okay? It could be a place. Right? That's why we have here this one. No? Who is your stressor? What is your stressor? Where is your stressor? Okay? And there's a lot. Okay? That an individual is stressed because of another person, okay, or something that he is doing, or a place. Okay, there are those people who are afraid of heights, afraid of an open space, and that's called phobia, and that could be very stressful to them. Okay, now let's talk about its physiology. Okay, and according to Hans Selye, okay, it is not actually the stress that kills us. It, it is our reaction to it. How do we react to certain situation? Okay? So Hansel is the first scientist to figure out how external stressors get under the skin to make us weak. Okay? And he proposed the general adaptation stages or the GAS. Okay? And um, we have here the alarm stage or the alarm phase, okay, resistance, and the exhaustion stage, no? And it shows there in the alarm phase is that the stressor upsets our homeostasis or our cellular balance. Okay, so in any situation that we are facing, no, somehow it upsets our homeostasis or our balance. Okay, and this is our time to prepare for action. Okay, like our sympathetic nervous system becomes activated in response to stress. Okay, in the resistance stage, no, it's the time that our body fights back by adjusting to the stress. Okay, or the individual tries to cope with the stressor by releasing stress hormones. Okay, and in addition, no, blood pressure, our heart rate, our respiration, okay, our body temperature would increase. Okay, and toward the end of the resistance phase, the activity of the sympathetic system declines. Okay, whereas the activity of the parasympathetic system increases. Okay, so these activities would help the individual adjust and cope with the stress. Okay, and on the exhaustion stage, okay, um, uh, this occurs when the stressor persists. No? So the activity of our sympathetic system, of course, declines, and now our parasympathetic system is very dominant. Okay, so when the organism uses up all the available resources, um, physical illness or problems are likely to develop. So it says here that resting, okay, would permit us an enhanced adaptation. Okay, while having no rest would of course increase the likelihood of having physical illness. Okay, and some problems. Okay, now Celia did not believe that we should aim, okay, for a stress-free life. Okay, since negative stress is simply unavoidable, we cannot avoid it, and that is called life. And the goal here is to minimize the wear and tear of the system, okay, and not to get rid of it entirely. So we have to cope up. Okay, we have to look for alternatives in solving different situations. Okay, so when we talk about stress, it seems that everything is negative. But then we have the so-called eustress, okay, which is the positive side of stress. No? Anything that makes us happy. All right, like winning the lottery would make us happy, right? So that is an example of eustress. Getting a new job, getting married, having a baby, and so on. We have a lot to mention. Okay, now let's talk about the different sources of stress. We have here frustration, we have change, conflict, adjustment, pressure. Okay, so let's start with the first one, frustration. It comes from the Latin word frustra, which means in vain. Okay, now frustration is a negative emotion that stems from the blocking of a goal-directed behavior. Okay, that we get frustrated because our goal is not being achieved because there are some barriers that blocks our way in getting our goal. Okay, number one here we have personal um, factors, no, and these personal factors are considered as our personal limitations. All right, and these, of course, limitations like our weaknesses when it comes to our physical health, okay, personality, and some of the these are just some of the personal factors. No, like the individual is having body deformities. That's why he cannot perform certain tasks. Okay, or a poor health condition. Okay? That's why the individual cannot really do what he wants to do, right? That's personal factor. Now, second is environmental factors, especially here in our country, that we are prone to different natural disasters. Recently, we experienced Typhoon Paeng, okay, and earthquakes, okay, here in Luzon, okay. So, environmental factors would refer to the physical conditions of the environment that may keep the person from satisfying his needs or achieving his goals in life, like calamities, okay, power failures, and many more that is related to our environment. Okay. Now we also have sociocultural factors. Okay, and this would refer to social and cultural factors that would hinder our goal attainment. Okay, and this would include our social norms, traditions, economic conditions, okay, superstitions, okay, also laws, right? And these are some of the factors that may hinder an individual in achieving his or her goals. Okay? Now, let's move on to the second one. We have conflict. Okay? And when we talk about conflict, it's from the Latin word conflictus, which means to strike together. Okay? And basically, stress arises when a person cannot be readily or cannot readily make a choice or a decision when they are confronted with two or more exclusive situations that may be beneficial or detrimental, okay, um, to them, okay. And we have different types, okay, when we talk about conflict. Oh. So we have approach, avoidance, approach avoidance, and multiple or uh, double, okay, double approach avoidance conflict. Okay, so let's talk about the first one. Okay, so the approach conflict. Okay, so in other words, this is also called the conflicting attraction. Okay, and of course, this occurs when the person is attracted to two positive goals that are mutually exclusive. That is, no, they cannot be satisfied or fulfilled at the same time. So they have this type of conflict can be resolved by delaying the satisfaction of one goal, if possible, or by choosing one of the goals and giving up the other. Like for example, here, no, it's either the person chooses pizza, okay, over the hamburger, okay, or choosing hamburger over pizza, okay. So again, two positive goals. Second one is the avoidance, okay, and this occurs, okay, when a person is confronted with this type of confronted with two situations that are both repulsive to him. Okay, so in this case, the person may vacillate or attempt to leave the conflict situation. Okay, and he is presented with two negative or undesirable goals. Okay, and he has to choose. Okay, and the third one is we have, oh, like for example, sorry, the person had a toothache. Okay, and on the other hand, he is afraid of going to the dentist. Okay, so two undesirable goals. No, the individual is having a toothache and it's very painful. So it's either he would go to the dentist even if he don't want to, so to remove or let the pain go away, or to live with pain, okay, and not go to the dentist. Okay. The third one is approach avoidance. Okay, and when we talk about approach avoidance, okay, the individual or the person is attracted to one goal, but it comes with a negative aspect. Okay, so like for example, okay, eating chocolates, for example, okay, that's the positive one. Okay, you eat chocolate because it's delicious. Okay, it gives satisfaction. However, eating too much would give us calories, okay, or a lot of calories that may lead us to different kinds of illnesses. So that's the approach avoidance, no? That we have a positive one, okay, but then positive characteristic, but then it is paired with a negative characteristic. Okay, so the third last one is the double approach avoidance. Okay, and this occurs when a person is confronted with two goals, or with two situations with both having positive and negative characteristics. Okay, and this is considered as the common, okay, type of conflict that we experience. Okay, like for example, buying a phone. Okay, that um, you don't have a phone and you're trying to weigh option if you will buy a brand new or a second hand phone. Okay, so in buying brand new phone, it is with a negative um, aspect. No, it's very expensive, right? But while when you choose a cheaper one, okay, that is a second hand already, or it was being used by other people. Okay, so it's up to us to weigh the option if we would buy the brand new one or the cheaper one. Okay, or the second hand cell phone. Okay, now let's talk about change, right? And when we talk about change, change is inevitable, right? And it is believed that any change in one's lifestyles or circumstances can bring stress to people. Okay? Like life changes are any not noticeable alterations in one's living, right? And according to some findings, no, or researchers, there are both positive and negative aspects of change, right? But then changes like changes in personal relationships, okay, having a new work, okay, problems with finances and so forth can be stressful even when the changes are welcome. Okay, and change just by changing your place of work, your place of residence is very stressful because you are into a new environment. Okay, and in relation to change, we have adjustment that individual copes with his ever-changing needs, motives, and habits. How do we adjust to the new situation? Okay, there are those people who can really adjust well. Okay, but then there are some who really can. Okay, and lastly, we have pressure. Okay, and when we talk about pressure, okay, it's very stressful. So if one is expected to perform or conform to certain standards, okay, he is under pressure because uh, the standards are very pressuring, you know, and and then pressure involves like expectations or demands that one behaves in a certain way. Okay, So you are under pressure when you are expected to perform and execute tasks and responsibilities, okay, quickly or efficiently and successfully. Okay, so a lot of pressure happens around us that may come from our parents, from our society, from our teachers, and many more, from our friends. Okay, because of expectation, we are pressured to do something. Okay, and that makes us very stressed, right? So now let's talk about the responses to stress. We have anxiety, aggression, apathy, dejection, and grief. Okay, so again, people react to stress differently. Okay, and some may react negatively, while others may devise mechanisms in order for them to adjust to the impact of their frustrating experiences. Okay, so when we talk about anxiety, okay, um, anxiety, some people, okay, may develop a general feeling of, apprehension or uneasiness, okay, when they are under stress, okay. So this feeling of anxiety may cause intense suffering, okay, also panic, and sometimes, they experience irrational fear, right? Second is we have aggression, right? And according to the frustration aggression hypothesis by John Dollard, frustrated people may become hostile and would behave violently when they are frustrated. Okay? So stress then produces feelings of anger that would range from mild annoyance to the uncontrollable rage. And we can sometimes notice people who becomes aggressive when they are under pressure or they are stressed out. Okay. Third is apathy. Okay, apathy, right? That when the stress becomes unbearable, some people may become, you know, indifferent and apathetic, right? So these people believe that the situation is hopeless, and you know, because of that feelings of hopelessness, they just accept the situation since they think that they cannot do anything to alleviate or improve their conditions, right? And lastly, we have dejection and grief, right? That sometimes, okay, stress, especially frustration, would simply bring us down, like losing in a contest, or having poor grades. Okay, this would often produce feelings of dejection. Okay, and like more profound setbacks such as death and financial reversals can leave one grief stricken. Okay, all right. So those are the different responses to stress, and let's talk about then the effects or the factors. I mean, moderating the impact of stress. So we have here social support, personality, and psychological control. Right? So let's talk about the first one. We have under social support, we have emotional, appraisal, informational, and instrumental. Okay? So when we talk about um, social support, you know, it can be an effective moderator of stress, right? Like social support would, of course, refer to different types of aid provided by one's social networks, okay? And when we talk about emotional support, right, it involves our expressions of affection, interest, and concern that would tell people they are being appreciated. Or also, it includes behaviors, okay, such as listening, okay, all right, not only listening, okay, but then, of course, we listen and react to them, no? All right. So just giving your open ears to others is a big help to them, especially if these people cannot really tell it to their parents, okay, to their lovers. Okay, if you are the friend of that person, just listen, and it's a big help already. Okay, and when we talk about appraisal support is basically helping people, okay, to evaluate and make sense of their troubles and problems. Okay, and it includes our efforts, okay, to clarify the nature of the problem and provide feedback about its significance. Okay, so we try to help them in evaluating their situation. Okay, we also clarify the nature of the problem. Okay, so as to give a clearer picture of what they are experiencing. Okay, and we also have informational support. Okay, and when we talk about informational support, it involves providing advice about how to handle problems. All right, and this kind of support would include discussing possible solutions and, of course, the relative merits of alternative coping strategies. Okay, and in giving advice, it's so important. However, we should not impose our mechanisms to other people, because again, we have different ways of coping. Okay, so just share what you do when you are being stressed, but then do not impose your ways of coping to them. Okay, and we also have instrumental support. Okay, and when we talk about instrumental support, it involves providing material aid and services. Okay, like providing a shelter to people, okay, lending money, going along to the social services agency, and helping to assume work or family responsibilities. Okay, now let's talk about personality. Okay, personality, it involves behavioral pattern, hardiness, and optimism. And in behavioral pattern, it says here that researchers, okay, have shown that people with type A personality pattern are more prone to stress than type B people. Because as we can see here, no, type A people are considered as ambitious, aggressive, competitive, and impatient. Okay, that when their goal is being blocked, okay, they tend to become aggressive. Okay, and they are sometimes impatient, that they want everything to be in place in an orderly manner. Okay, as compared to these type B people who are considered as calm. Okay, and they try to experience life in a more laid back and less intense way. Okay, so if you consider yourself as a type A person, try to look for ways, okay, to calm yourself, okay, and to experience life rather than being competitive and impatient. Okay, now let's talk about hardiness. It is characterized by um, a sense of commitment rather than alienation. Okay, and control rather than powerlessness, and perception of problems as challenges rather than threats. Okay, that we should be in control of ourselves. Okay, that than considering ourselves as powerless. Okay, and looking at problems as challenges rather than threat to our lives. Okay, and lastly, we have optimism, and of course, basically, when we talk about optimism, is the general tendency to extend good outcomes. Okay, and uh, researchers found out that optimists would cope with stress differently than those who are pessimists. Okay, so optimistic people are more likely to engage in an action-oriented or problem-focused coping, and they are more willing to seek social support, okay, as compared to those people who are pessimistic. Okay, and lastly, we have psychological control. Okay, and when we talk about psychological control, people who have a sense of control, or who have or more control of their lives, are less prone to illness, okay, and stress than those who are under the control of other people or institutions. Okay, so basically, what is being said here is we should have our control of our lives. That we should not be controlled by the challenges or problems that we face every day. Okay? So basically, that would end the first part of this discussion, and part two would cover the different coping strategies. All right? And thank you for listening. Tune in to the next video.